Good to see everybody. Thanks for showing up tonight. Let's take the time and listen to the body. And even this settling process, settling into our posture, even this, we don't want to turn into something we do on autopilot or turn into some activity where we're pretending to be practicing. But there's something very real and very fresh about how we practice. And it's really about this quality of interest or a quality of openness to how it is. The sense of being right in the middle, alert, interested. And remember, we have permission. We don't need to figure anything out. We don't need to explain anything to ourselves. Being open doesn't mean that we can articulate what's happening to ourselves. The moment doesn't require an explanation at all. Might be more useful to think about this settling into our practice time, this practice of wisdom and awareness, as more about alignment. We're aligning with the truth of the way it is. And we can only do that through this willingness to, in a sense, listen or open, this receptive quality. So that means we're abandoning these habits that I have to get somewhere, or I have to become someone, I have to fix something. Instead, we can just notice those different kind of impulses that might arise in the mind as a thought being known. Just that thought being known here and now. I have to get somewhere. I have to become somebody. I have to fix something. Any doubt, any confusion, it doesn't have to be resolved in the way we might think it does. We're just recognizing the truth of the moment. Confusion's like this, or doubting is like this. Doubting is being known. It's just like this now. Feels like this. And of course, the different habits of mind are going to manifest. The habit to be greedy, to want to hold on to something that's pleasant or make something good happen. Aversion and fear will show up. Doubt, restlessness, dullness. But the resolution of these so-called hindrances is just that receptive knowing, remembering to know that this state of mind, this quality of mind is like this. It's present, it's here, it's being felt, being seen as something being known in the moment. Something being felt in the moment. So even when we're having a hellish experience, it's not about getting rid of the hellish experience, but rather simply acknowledging it as something being known and felt. And if it does go away and we feel the release and relief of that, then we just recognize that relief as being known. The happiness of a hellish state going away is being known. And if it persists and we have a lot of doubt, then we just notice that, because that's how it is. So in this way, there are ever always two things. There's an experience and there's the knowing of it. And our job as a meditator is to keep that in mind, the experiences that are coming and going, and that they're being known. That it's being known here and now, in what we call the present moment. So in that sense, we're reducing our experience to the sequence of something being known, one thing after another being known, here and now. It's not a value judgment. We're not trying to make something happen. Again, we're just aligning with the truth of our moments. Something is being known. So let's continue in silence for the rest of the sitting time. Just do the best we can. Let that be good enough. Noticing, if you can, the quality of the mind, the attitude, how the mind is relating to the present moment. Without judgment, just acknowledging the quality of the mind. And we borrow wise view from the Buddhist teachings, which means that as we observe these different sounds being known and different sensations being felt and sights being seen, thoughts, emotions being known, we borrow the Buddha's point of view and we practice seeing all of this as the activity of nature, the natural process of causes and conditions unfolding, including our most personal thoughts and reactions, also just the conditional unfolding of nature. All this activity of body and mind, internal, external, this is nature. This is a natural process unfolding. Can this be okay? To be intimate and to let things be. And continuing this receptive mode as we begin to move and stretch the body, however you need to. And thanks so much for showing up, everyone. It's good to see you. Nice that we can gather in this way. I mentioned last week that it's nice to review our basic practice instructions, similar to the kind of instructions you might receive on a retreat. And of course, there are many skillful means, but this is sort of the broad outline of our practice. And our practice, again, is this, I think that's best to use both words, wisdom and awareness. And I mentioned in the guided sit, the wisdom initially we might feel as if we're borrowing it, from our teachers, from our lineage. It's not so much that we're believing what we're told as we're checking it out, checking out this view that experience that we're sensitive to is a natural process. And that it's really simple, it's always something being known. So, in that particular sense, wise view, and this is really what I want to emphasize tonight. I mentioned last week the 4 instructions: valuing relaxation, remembering to recognize awareness, keep recognizing present moment awareness. And the 4th instruction is really about checking the attitude. It's really the wisdom instruction. How is the mind relating? Is the way my mind is relating to experience right now, is it skillful? Is it helpful? Is it a cause for stress? And then in just being interested, like whether the way my mind is relating to experience, whether that's skillful or unskillful, the mind will discern wise view. Wise view is that way of relating that is onward leading to release, not onward leading to stress. Right? It's a way of coming into alignment. And this, what we call wise view or right view, samma is the Pali word. I think I mentioned that last week. It means a view, a way of relating that's in alignment with reality, as opposed to I'm projecting my idea of reality onto the experience in the present moment. And there will always be some dissonance, some stressfulness, because my mind is imposing something that's not actually the way it is. Like self-view, self-centeredness, it's not, things never have been nor will ever be self-centered in the way we normally think of that word. But we impose that all the time. Somebody insults us, it feels very personal. Even when I stub my toe, it will feel personal. Like, whether I blame the thing I stubbed my toe on or I blame myself for being an idiot and not paying attention. But that projection that everything is about me, and even the stuff that I don't care about, I don't care about that stuff in my experience. And we never, we we in a way we operate as if our view, the way we're relating, our perspective, our understanding is true. We don't realize that there's the option of it being not true, not in alignment, unwise, right? So that's the first step, just to realize view, attitude, the way my mind is relating really matters. It really matters. So it just like would be a natural expression of a wise person is to get interested in the attitude in any given moment. How is the mind relating? What qualities are there? Are those qualities of mind helpful or not? That would be just a natural thing for someone who cares about their life. And that movement from an unwise attitude, unwise way of relating, a way of relating that's not in alignment with the way it is, to wisdom, the wise way of relating, is more about what is abandoned than what it is that we pick up. Oh, I'm picking up wise view. It's more about letting qualities of mind, ways of relating that aren't helpful, letting them cease, letting them fall away, be abandoned, because over and over again they're seen as not being helpful. Yeah, so this is an important, even though, tonight when I talk about this fourth instruction to check the attitude, to get interested in how the mind is relating, and to begin to discern naturally, because we're interested in the attitude of mind and how the mind, heart is relating, will naturally develop, oh, this way of relating is not helpful. This way of relating is stressful. This way of relating is really skillful, helpful. Right, that difference will just start to slowly come online just by being interested in how the mind is relating. But to be oblivious to how the mind is relating, like to be in a way fixated on the objects of our experience and oblivious to this experience as being known, and how is it being known? Like, what is the filter, the way of understanding that is affecting the experience that's being known. This is from Sayadaw U Tejaniya. There is a natural progression in the growth of awareness. You might start off with just one object, say the breath. After a while, you become aware of several objects in the body. Then you will notice how you're feeling. While being aware of all these objects in the body, later on you will become able not only to be aware of the objects and feelings, but also of the mind that is aware, plus the attitude that's behind the awareness. Once you are able to see this whole picture, you will begin to understand how all these objects affect each other. This is understanding, this is wisdom, but you have to be patient. This process takes time to unfold. And it's really useful, we should be grateful to get this sort of pointing out. Even before we're capable, but just to be told that at any given moment, the mind is relating, right? The mind is sensing what it's sensing through various filters, these habits of how my mind relates, how my mind knows. That the knowing is affected by habit. How the mind knows is affected by habit. See, once we're told that, then it's possible for the mind to be interested. Well, how is my mind relating? How is it affecting how it is right now for me, from this heart, this sensitive heart? Like if we're greedy, really wanting something interesting to happen, to be realize that, oh, that attitude is in the room. It's good to know what's in the room. That attitude is affecting what I'm calling my experience. So it's not just what I'm seeing or hearing or thinking or sensing in my body. It's the spin or the shape that the greed is bringing to the moment, or the aversion or fear is bringing to the moment, or the denial or the, whatever the particular quality that's there in the mind and its effect. I had the good fortune to sit a retreat with Sayadaw Tejaniya. I think this is the last time I saw him in person. In 2015, he was teaching I think a 2 or 3 week retreat at Spirit Rock. And yeah, it was a great retreat. And that first day, I have the transcription of so how he introduced the practice. That first day, I just want to read a little bit. He said, in the present moment, whatever we know, whatever we can be aware of, it's an effect of the accumulation of past causes. Many causes come together to bring the present moment into condition. Because it's an effect, we can't actually change it. Now, I don't know if this immediately resonates with you, but it's meant to really shift our attitude. Because when we understand, as Sayadaw U Tejaniya is suggesting, that the way this moment is that I'm sensitive to, the way it is right now for me, is the result of past causes. And so it never is rational. It never makes sense to hate the moment or to reject the moment, because it's just the natural expression of whatever's past, whatever those past causes are. When the past causes are the way that they are, then you get a moment like this. So if your mind is dull, you know, we should just understand, well, of course it's dull. Why do we say of course it's dull? Well, because if it's dull, there must be past causes for the dullness. Dullness doesn't come out of nowhere. There are past causes for it. Or if I'm feeling really happy now, or really critical now, or really generous now, there are always past causes. So you see, already it starts to remove this taking things personally and reacting as if everything's personal. So if I have a mood that's unpleasant, I'll take it personally, like, oh God, here I go again. Or if I have a really pleasant mood, oh, I must be doing something right. No, it's just the natural expression of causes and conditions. Not so different than weather. I don't know, some of you, not all of you are in Minnesota, but we're getting a big snowstorm. And, after being teased with some spring weather the last week or so, and now it's not that it's that cold, but we're going to get a sizable amount of snow. And then we're relating. Now, most of us have enough wisdom that we don't personalize the snow as if someone's out to get me, I must deserve it, or maybe you like snow and you think you're special because it's snowing, God loves me, but it's just snow. It's just that whatever the weather is, we can have that equanimity that, yeah, of course it's this way, given all of those causes that make weather weather. It can't be other than the way it is right now. And all of those causes behind the weather, none of those are personal to me, right? I don't direct them. I'm not responsible in any way. But we feel differently about so much of our experience. Even weather, sometimes we just deludedly take it personally, like, no, somehow we are responsible, even though we don't say that out loud, but our reaction can make it seem like, oh, of course. And of course, with bodily pain, we're that way, and with our moods, and even with the state of the world. You can just to cultivate this first part, I'm going to read more from Sayadaw's instructions, but you could just develop the habit of the mantra, of course. So you're just going through your day, not just when you're sitting, but any time during your day, and you're driving and there's traffic, and the sort of heartfelt response is, of course there's traffic. And it's just that opening to all of the unseen, unrecognized causes and conditions that lead the traffic to be the way they are right now. And then you go into the office and you're really greeted in a friendly way because there are causes and conditions. And so again, just silently in your heart, of course, people love me. Of course, we've cultivated trust and good feelings for each other. Of course, people are going to be friendly. Of course, it's like this, and then, later in the day, we have a headache and we remember, oh, I didn't have any caffeine this morning. Of course. So it's just a way of aligning with the lawfulness of causes and conditions, of conditionality, we say sometimes. That things are lawful, of course. And when we say of course to ourselves, it doesn't mean we're reading all of the subtle causes and conditions that make this particular thing the way it is right now. We're just banking on all those other times. To some degree, we could see the lawfulness. So there's the presumption, this too is lawful, of course. I may not know the causes and conditions behind what's manifesting right now in my experience, but I know it's lawful. And you see how that's in the direction of understanding, it's not personal. It's just a little bit, it's like building the foundation of what we call wise view, wise understanding, is understanding lawfulness, conditionality. This is very central to how the Buddha understood his own experience and what he taught for those 45 years in northern India, this conditional nature, as a beginning to this deeper understanding of anatta, this impersonal nature. That it's all of this, whatever we're talking about, internal experience, external experience, there is nothing in terms of what's moving in terms of experience, there is nothing that is personal. It is just this complex unfolding, this natural process unfolding, and that sense of it not referring back. So let me read a little bit more from what Sayadaw said in that first morning of the 2-week retreat. What can we do in the present moment is work with the mind that knows. We can make sure it has right attitude, that it's working in the right way. We can bring those qualities of mind to bear in the present moment by being aware and cultivating those good qualities. Because we know that how the mind relates matters, then we understand like what qualities are helpful, like loving kindness, or the 7 factors of awakening, mindfulness, wise investigation, energy, that steadfastness, joy, tranquility, concentration, equanimity. This is an important list. In Buddhism, again, it's the 7 factors of awakening. And what's not helpful, what's not going to be onward leading to more wisdom, to more calm, to more release, more letting go of what can be let go of. And then he said, first off, in the present moment, the first thing that we can do is check whether there is wise view or not. There we come to the fact that awareness alone is not enough. To practice insight meditation effectively, the wise view must practice together with awareness. And then he said, wrong view is always at work. Our automatic view of the world is that the process of mind and matter is me. I'm looking at me. I know me. But we can't practice using that point of view. So that's an important point. So now, will our self-centeredness manifest in our practice? Absolutely, all the time. But when we're practicing, our job isn't to stop the self-centeredness. Our job is to see all the different self-centered patterns, doubt, greed, aversion, fear, wanting to give up. These are, just some of the many self-centered patterns that live on in all of our minds, I'm assuming, but definitely in mine, is just to see that that's something being known. So we're converting, what wise view does, it converts self-centered activity into nature. What is nature? Nature is always 2 things, something being known. One moment at another, and this is the conditional unfolding. Something is being known, and then the next moment, something else is being known, and then the following moment, something else is being known. And that one moment of knowing to the next, that's the conditional unfolding. And that continuity confuses us. Like, I'm giving the talk now. I was giving the talk, I assume, a few minutes ago. It seems like it's the same me giving the talk that was back there, because there's some conditional relationship to this moment and all those previous moments that I imagine are somewhere behind me, and the future is somewhere in front of me. So we have all these ideas of continuity, of me continuing moment by moment by moment. But if we train ourselves, as Sayadaw's asking us to do, as the Buddha asks us to do, to recognize each moment as simply something being known, then all the self-centered trips that we tend to live with, they start to fall apart because they're an unnecessary projection on the present moment. We've been trained through culture to do that, to have a self-view, to project a self-view, to depend on self-view. It's all we know. Wrong view is the most familiar thing in our existence, which is why it's not easy to practice and why so much emphasis is on this wisdom piece. I think I mentioned this last week. The path from beginning to end, whether we like it or not, is a path of wisdom. And so we can't just do the practice, mindfulness, awareness practice. We can't do it on autopilot because we'll be practicing with self-view. It won't be productive. So however, it's not like there's just one way to practice, but however we practice, we have to remember that we're shifting our view. So there will be pushback. It will feel awkward or it will feel wrong, It's like, oh, why would we do that? That's so sterile that this is being known, We're very comfortable framing things in terms of me having experience. It's my experience, by the way, and I like this part of my experience and I don't like that part. And I have opinions about all my experience, including the stuff that I think is neutral, which I don't care about, but that's my opinion about it, right? So it seems like the self is entwined with everything. And so the Buddha hands us this technique that have been passed down now for 2,600 years, generation by generation, this technique, which we call wisdom and awareness or mindfulness, being present. But it can't be done without this. Initially, we're borrowing wise view from the Buddhist teachings. And we're checking it out. We're sort of, okay, because we don't realize otherwise that I'm bringing something to the moment, but right now what we're bringing to the moment is wrong view. So we need to do this awkward thing, which is we're going to be awake, but we're going to practice using wise view with this present moment awareness, which means we're seeing it as a natural process, whatever we're sensitive to. We're seeing as something that's unfolding as a natural process, so that it's nature, and that the moment is quite simple. Something is being known, and that's it. And if it feels like there's more to the moment, any moment of your life, whether you're meditating or not, if it feels like, no, there's this being known by me, then whatever that experience is by me, that's also something being known. So like, oh yeah, no, it feels very personal. Okay, then feeling personal is being known. No, it's really me. That's being known. So we're just sticking with this, and eventually in our heart we'll develop a lot of confidence in that, you could just call it being present, but we're deconstructing, or we're getting a little bit more clear about what it means to be present. It has this wisdom aspect to it, has interest, it has this wisdom, and the wisdom is there as a counterweight to the habits of delusion. The habit of delusion is to think, to project that this experience is happening to me. Where's that me that this experience is happening to? When you go looking for it right now, right? Because you think this experience you're having is happening to you, like that's the habit, right? We go looking for the me that this is happening to, and all we ever find is something being known. We tie ourselves up into philosophical circles. That's being known. We think the whole thing's stupid. That thought, this is all stupid, is being known. We just keep coming back to that. And then this fourth instruction, to check the attitude. Sometimes Sayadaw will talk about it that way. Or one time he says, really, the whole practice revolves around three things. having wise view, recognizing wise view, and to keep recognizing wise view. Because the rest, like valuing relaxation and remembering to recognize the present moment and keep recognizing the present moment, it all will arise out of this interest in wise view. And wise view, again, just to repeat myself a little, wise view begins with understanding the conditional nature of our experience, that it's a lawful unfolding, that this moment, any aspect of this moment, like how my mind is right now, like what thoughts are there, or what I'm seeing, or what I'm hearing, or what I'm feeling in my body, just to have that sense that what I'm feeling in my body right now, like I've got a couple really sore spots in my knees, both knees, and I don't know how it happened, but I have unshakable confidence that it's lawful. Like there were causes and conditions that these particular tendons in my knees are really inflamed, right? And so this, it's like, and I'm really comfortable with that point of view now. Or if my mind's just fit to be tied, like burnt out or not capable of doing much, my my old habit would have been like bad Mark. But now it's like, yeah, I wonder what happened that led the mind to be this way. Because I know it just didn't happen. There were causes and conditions. And the same thing, we read the news, and instead of like blaming one person, we just understand, well, yeah, of course it's this way now. There have been innumerable complex dance of causes and conditions that make things the way they are right now. We're not saying it's good the way things are right now, and we're not saying that people aren't being harmed or any of that. We're just understanding that, of course, given all that's in motion, it can't be other than the way it is right now. Doesn't mean we're not going to do something about it. It just is a way of understanding. And when death comes and we're on our deathbed, well, yeah, of course, this is how it is. So let me read a little bit more. I have a couple paragraphs I wanted to read from this opening instructions from Sayadaw Tejaniya. If we think of the body or the mind as me and we observe it, defilements will begin arising. We will attach to things that we experience and are observing. We will resist the things that we are observing. If we think this is a good experience, we'll start wanting it or trying to create it. If we think it's not a good experience, we'll start to deny it or push it away. The mind is the worst. The moment we think it's not a good mind, hell starts. Looking at the mind doesn't bring good news. And then he laughs. It's odd, when we look at our minds, mostly we see a lot of negative stuff running around. If we think it's my mind, we start feeling pretty depressed. And if we think we have good qualities of mind, we start feeling good. That's pride. So to practice Vipassana, insight meditation effectively then, we have to remind ourselves that these minds, these processes, are also nature, so that we can observe them. When you observe yourself, this whole process of mind and matter, you want to remind yourself that the me is actually a process of mind and matter coming together. We want to understand that process, and that's why we're observing it. And there's so much freedom in understanding this, because it means we don't have to suppress or get rid of Mark. Like when this mind here is acting out in any way that it might act out. And then as a meditator or somebody practicing during the day, I might think, God, I gotta get my act together. I'm being bad. No, our job is to be awake, to observe that activity of the mind, or even what I'm doing with my body, as the activity of nature. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to change our behavior if we're acting out in a way that's unskillful. We might actually, this way of practicing might really support behaving, in that way, in that sort of like being good instead of bad. But the way that we purify our life, our actions, our thoughts, our words, isn't by control, but through understanding. Oh, it's like this. This is nature. And the nature of this mind, let's say if it's being unskillful, is onward leading to stressful states. It's the seeing the lawfulness of that natural process that we call Mark, seeing the lawfulness, seeing that it's onward leading to peace and kindness, or onward leading to stress and aversion, fear. It's seeing that conditional unfolding that leads to positive change. So if it's wholesome, then the mind knows it's wholesome and knows that it's fine to continue with this way of being. If it's unwholesome and stressful, wisdom knows this is unwholesome and stressful. And then the natural letting go happens. We don't have to step in there as a person to make things right. We just need to understand it as a natural process. It's kind of like a natural feedback. And you can just experiment with yourself. Like if there's some place in your life where you tend to be unskillful, act out some addictive pattern, watch too much TV or eat too much or gossip too much or take advantage, manipulating people that you can manipulate in ways that aren't really that kind, then make a resolve to just be really intimate. Really feel what you're feeling, see what you're seeing, see it as nature, and see if the heart, if the body, mind, if your life moves in a positive direction. What's the most effective strategy for changing so-called bad habits? Being judgmental, being hateful, scolding yourself, punishing yourself, or resolving to be interested, resolving to feel what you feel as you do whatever you do, like in that situation, act out in an unskillful way. So you have to do your own experiments so you see how skillful this wisdom and awareness practice is in transforming our lives, undoing what's unwholesome and cultivating the wholesome. The Buddha would summarize his practice this way. It's really sweet. He's not the only Buddha, the only awakened one who taught. He's one in a series, at least in terms of Buddhist cosmology. And he would say, all the Buddhists taught, cultivate the good, abandon what's unskillful, and purify the heart. And the purify the heart is developing the sensitivity that comes from the continuity of present moment awareness. Right? We need that sensitivity, that stability and sensitivity, so we can discern what's skillful and unskillful. And that's it. When we have that stability of sensitivity, then we will notice what's skillful, and that will be cultivated. When we see ourselves being kind or generous or calm, we're also going to see clearly the wholesomeness of that kindness, of that generosity, of that calm. And that will reinforce that. Just seeing the skillfulness of skillful qualities is what strengthens them. And seeing the unskillfulness of unskillful qualities, it is what weakens them and causes them to be abandoned. Not becoming the me who wants to get rid of some bad habit, but just seeing that it's unskillful. Some of you, I'm sure, maybe all of us have had some addictive pattern that we've abandoned. Maybe you smoke cigarettes or drank too much or, whatever it is. And now you're free of that pattern. And probably if you look back in hindsight, again, to understand the natural causes and conditions, the natural process of the heart abandoning that unskillful pattern, addictive pattern, you'll see that you the mind over time, gradually, was able to really see clearly how that pattern was what it was. Stressful, not for your well-being, not for anybody's well-being, unhelpful, right? You see that enough, and the letting go of the pattern happens without anybody having to do it. I mean, in language, when we talk to our friends, we say, yeah, I used to do this, I don't do this anymore, I really gave it up. So it's okay to use that personal way of phrasing it, when we're communicating with each other. That's just how we talk in our culture. That's fine. But you want to understand that the letting go, the dropping of a bad habit, happens because of that wisdom and awareness that saw the unwholesomeness of it. It's sort of like when we really know we're holding something that's too hot to hold, we let go. you know, I don't have to be the one who, yeah, I think I'm going to let go. This is personal autonomy here. I'm letting go. No, it just happens. Letting go happens when the mind is clear. My hand is burning. This is not for my well-being or anybody's well-being. Letting go happens. But it isn't a cognitive thing. We tell ourselves after the fact that I did that. That's part of the egoic narration, is that we claim ownership of all of our actions. They can even do these experiments now where, I forget exactly how they work, but they can tell that part of the mind that decided to do that, it actually happens after the activity itself, right? It's sort of like the egoic mind is going back and saying, okay, now let me retell the story in terms of me doing it all. And then that's what we remember. We remember the story, the egoic or self-centered story of our lives, not the natural process of our lives. Sayadaw would teach us to, when you're not clear or when you're doing this kind of work, that it's okay to develop the skill to ask questions just to keep the mind, like especially when you're doing this fourth part of checking your attitude. How is the mind relating? Is it relating skillfully or not skillfully? Is there greed in the mind? Is there aversion? Is the mind kind, relating in a friendly way right now? Does the mind have a generous spirit? Is the mind bored? So it's not about endless mental proliferation thinking, but it's actually using skillful thought, right? We do it silently usually, We're using a skillful thought to help the mind get interested in what's pretty subtle. Like the attitude in our mind right now is subtle. And a lot of times when I, like at a talk like this, I might say, so what's your attitude like right now? And when you check right now, what is your mood or attitude, or how are you relating? And it's also, finally, the mind's quiet. It's like when we get interested in the mind, it's like the mind shuts up. Nothing here. Don't look here. Right? So it has to have some continuity, and it has to be a light touch. And it's really about the sincerity. Like the mind is always relating. And like Sayadaw said in the quote that I read, the default is always to be projecting self. That this is happening to me, these are my thoughts, this is my seeing, this is my feeling of sensation. And that default is so commonplace we don't notice it. Sometimes when I have some momentum, I'll make the question really simple. I'll say something like, is this self or is this nature? So the mind is aware, and just as a slight counterweight to the habit of projecting self-centeredness, I'll just ask, is this self or is this nature? And I know the answer, right? I mean, I know the right answer. So, but it's just a phrase to help the mind be curious, interested in just the right way, at just the right pitch or frequency. Remember, because it's a subtle frequency, that interest in how the mind is relating to experience. Because there's always an experience and there's the knowing of the experience. But the knowing of the experience can be affected by habit. And then we don't tend to notice that. We're looking at the sound we're hearing, or the sight we're seeing, or the sensations in the body that we're feeling, or the mental content, the thoughts that we're noticing. But we're not noticing how we're looking or how we're opening, how we're receiving the experience. That's affected by habit, by our self-centered habits. And if we don't know to look, we're never going to see. And it's sort of like, are we observing it as a natural process, or are we observing it as something happening to me, that's my experience? That's what that phrase, is this nature or is this self? And you're just going to have to experiment a little bit to find just the right way to stay interested in the attitude. And generally, we're not doing this continuously. We're relaxing, valuing relaxation. We're remembering to recognize that this is being known. We're learning how to keep remembering that this is being known, building some momentum. And every once in a while, just check on the attitude. How's the mind relating? How's the mind relating? Is this nature or self? This is from one of the books that I linked to in the this document that I just put in the chat. I have a couple of Sayadaw's books you can download if you want, or just have digitally. And one is called Collecting Gold Dust. This is a quote from that. When we are experiencing something, we should remind ourselves that it is an object of meditation and that the mind is knowing it. It should not be that this is a bad experience or this is a good experience. We would like to see things and regard things as they are. What is being known is just to be known, not to be loved or hated or desired or pushed away. Instead, we remind ourselves that what is happening, what we are experiencing, and what we are observing is all nature. We should remind ourselves that objects will always follow their nature. That's that conditional unfolding that I mentioned. That they are doing what they are doing, and that they are being seen, heard, or experienced. If we don't remind ourselves of this nature, the mind will vacillate, desiring in one moment and resisting in the next moment. Desire and resistance distort the lenses of the mind. Then a little bit more here before we end, and I'll open it for discussion. You also need to know how to view these objects that are arising. Whether they are sense objects or your experience, you need to view them as nature. Nature means it's impossible to find a you or a me. Nature is all just the process of cause and effect. There's nothing inherently good or bad in these objects. The same instruction applies to the thinking mind. When you notice that the mind is thinking, know it. If there is less thinking, know that. If there's more thinking, know that. If there is no thinking, know that. Thinking is the mind, and the definition of mind is that which thinks and that which knows, right? So even the thinking mind, which can drive us crazy, is that me or is that just nature? Is it the nature of the mind, as Sayadaw says, to do those two things? To think and to be the knowing, to the knowing. That's the nature of the mind. Just like our ears hear and our eyes see, well, the mind thinks. right? And all these things are being known. Problems arise when there's aversion to thinking, when you have the idea that you should not be thinking when you are meditating. All sorts of resistance follow that idea. There's no need to struggle with your thoughts because the thinking mind is never a problem. If there's a lot of thinking going on, there's no need to reduce it. All you have to do is acknowledge over and over again that the mind is thinking. After all, you are only able to recognize that amount of thinking because there's awareness. Now, I'm not going to say that thinking isn't a problem. I think the way to think about that is that the way out of the problem that thinking seems to create for somebody, like the meditator, the way out of that problem is to recognize thinking for what it is. It's something being known. Not being known by a person, it's just that mental activity being known. And if there's some disgust with the thoughts that are being known, then the disgust is being known too. So I'll leave it here. It'd be nice to hear from folks, your questions, your experience in your practice that relate to these four instructions: value relaxation, remembering to recognize awareness, keep recognizing this present moment awareness, and periodically check the attitude. Is the mind relating as if things are personal, or is it relating as if things are just a natural process unfolding? What qualities are there? What way of relating is happening? Yeah, what comes to mind? Feel free to just unmute yourself. It's nice to introduce yourself if you want with your first name, maybe where you're coming from. Feel free also if you want to share your pronouns. Anybody feel like getting us started?
I had a question. My name is Erica, and I'm in St. Paul, she, her pronouns. And when you were talking about addictive patterns and sort of the mind being able to let go because it recognizes that that's not wholesome or onward leading and causes suffering, I'm noticing in a particular reactive pattern that I'm trying to deal with lately that a lot of what's under the reaction is sort of the bodily, the anxiety, the dread, the fear that comes in that then triggers that reaction. And so I'm wondering if the wisdom affects that bodily sensation also, or if simply the act of becoming more aware and less reactive will eventually diminish the sort of bodily reaction that seems to be underneath than the acting out of that particular pattern, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Thanks, Erica. Yeah, we need a lot of patience there because sometimes, like those underlying patterns of anxiety or just even bodily holding, this chronic habits, because maybe it's something the body and mind has practiced for years and years, so it has some momentum, that habit of being held or being tight or feeling heavy, feeling raw, feeling wormy sometimes. So that has different qualities depending. And that momentum. So with awareness, we might notice the surface expression of that pattern, which is that neurotic thinking. But that neurotic thinking could go away immediately. But that underlying wormy anxiety, that has different causes and conditions, right? So we need to notice it as something being known, feels like this. Notice the unpleasantness of it. Unpleasantness is being known. Like all of that conditioned habit to hate it, to want it to go away, we have to acknowledge that in a friendly way too. Oh, honey, of course. Now I'm languaging it just, but you language it this way to help you really see it. Like that compassion really helps you get close. Oh, you really don't like this. Yeah. And this is being known. This is being felt. It's like this. It's just this being felt. Just like the self-compassion is also being known now, and the self-compassion about that wormy anxiety is beautiful. But the wormy anxiety is what it is. It's unpleasant. And we have to be like, just keep seeing it over and over until there's nothing to see. And wanting it to be done, like seeing it in order for it to go away, is called aversion. We're hating it. And hating it is not the cause for it to unwind. Seeing it as an impersonal, like a weather system. Anxiety is a weather system. Of course, given all the conditions in play, of course there's anxiety here in the depth of my heart. Of course. Yeah. And when the conditions aren't this way, there won't be anxiety. But right now the conditions are this way. There's anxiety. And anxiety isn't personal, is it? According to the Buddha. Anxiety is simply something being felt. And that statement, as words, seems pretty feeble. But the actual understanding of any, especially now we're talking about an oppressive emotional state, understanding that it's simply just that experience being known is liberating. It's hard to put into words why that is, but it is. Because it's aligning with the truth. There never was an Erica there who was anxious. There was anxiety and there was sensitivity to the anxiety. That's the truth of our lives. There's in that moment that you're describing, Erica, there's anxiety and there's sensitivity to the anxiety. But that idea that it belongs to me is extra. It's just a habit, and it will fall away when it's seen. And the way we help to see it is we try to align with the truth, at least as the Buddha tells us the truth is, which is there's just two things, anxiety and the knowing of it. And so when we see that self-centered move, but it's happening to me and I don't like it, we'll see that that also is just something being known. That's not Erica. It's just that it's happening to me and I don't like it being known. So we have to keep deconstructing our experience over and over again with confidence, in a friendly way, with this confidence that I'm just aligning with the way it is. I'm not trying to impose some religious or spiritual view on my life. No, it isn't. It's so pragmatic. And that's when something shockingly amazing happens, where we get a little taste of the truth of what these words point to. And it's like we've been carrying a 100-pound backpack our whole lives, and all of a sudden it's off for a few moments. And we realize going forward is, I don't have to carry that 100-pound backpack around, right? Which is really the weight of self-view, just always interpreting things in a self-centered way. Whether things are going well or going difficult, that's the chronic habit. And it's extra. It's just a habit. It isn't a line. Isn't the truth of the way it is. Thanks, Erica. Time for at least one more comment or question. Other learnings that people want to share or questions? Reactions?
I have a quick question, Mark.
Yeah.
This is Melissa, and it relates to this kind of use of this phrase, of course. I really, I can see its wisdom, but I'm wondering how it relates to interest, staying interested. So if you say, of course it's like this. Of course the causes have led to this moment.
Yeah.
I'm just curious how I can sustain the interest.
You can do what the Tibetan Buddhists do. They have this word emaho, I think is how it's translated or how it's pronounced, but it gets translated as how amazing. Like, wow, How amazing. So, because of course, like as Melissa's suggesting, it does have a little bit of, belittling maybe quality to it. So do the opposite. How amazing that it's like this, that it's just this being known. How amazing. You have to find your own way. So it's sort of like understanding the spirit behind me saying, of course, right? Because it's like, it's all about this deep, sincere wish to see things as they actually are, to align with the truth of this moment. And we're talking not metaphysical or philosophical, we're really talking about our subjective experience, which is available to us. We can connect with our subjective experience. It's right here. We just have to be interested.
Yeah. So it might just be something like, that there are moments that call for it, is how I would work with it.
Yeah. And I really think there's room for experimentation, and you don't need any words actually, right? There just can be a support, but not always. They can also be in the way. So you just have to experiment. Some of you will find using a word or phrase periodically helpful, and others of you won't. So nice to be with everybody tonight. Thanks for showing up. I'll be doing a day-long retreat. I think it might be the 22nd, Saturday the 22nd. There's Loving Kindness Practice Group this coming Friday, 7 to 8:30. I'll be leading that this month. And Shelley will be out at the retreat center for about 2 weeks in the early part of April. People can go for a couple days. Experienced practitioners can go for a couple days or longer during that teacher-led practice period. Wynn and Shelley will be leading a retreat later on, I think right at the very end of May or early June. Maybe it's the first weekend in June, now that I think about it. And of course, many other things coming up. And by the way, the next Buddhist studies, after Shelley finishes this course on dukkha, I'll be leading a 4-week course on anatta, the impersonal nature, so related very much to what I've been talking about tonight. And that begins like in the middle of April, and it goes for 4 Monday nights. So consider that if that makes sense. Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to say goodnight to